Hi, everybody. My name is Joe George. I am a middle school counselor currently in Israel at Walworth Barber American International School. This is my 16th year as a middle school counselor, and I started my career as a high school social studies teacher. When I'm not doing work stuff or solution-focused stuff, I'm hanging out with my wife and kids. I have an elementary age son and a middle school daughter.
I'm Felina Hart. I've been in education, 22 plus years. I started off teaching high school, film production, speech and debate, a lot of different things on that end. And then I got my counseling degree and worked in Houston, Texas as a counselor for a couple of years, spent 5 years in Kyiv, Ukraine, working as an elementary and middle school counselor, and I'm currently on my 4th year in Budapest, Hungary, as a middle school counselor. Next year, I will be going to Chennai, India, to work as an elementary counselor. So I have one son who recently got married this summer, so he's grown and married and living his life. Other than that, I have 2 border collies that I love to spend time with and just hang out and work a lot with Joe on the solution focused stuff. And we hope that we have some things that we can share with you today.
And as we're getting started, if you could toss in the box, what are your best hopes for this presentation?
Some tools for getting started, helping kids find solutions, getting new ideas, handling challenging kids, tools and examples for new ideas. Okay.
Well, for all of you, we have some great news and some not so great news. The great news is that we will do each and every one of these things in the ISCA Academy that we're running in January. This presentation is largely about why we love it. How you learn it and live it will come next. But you will have some takeaways from today, some tangible resources. However, solution focus is something that is very easy to understand and hard to get good at. So even though we'll give you a glimpse into what it's like, we'll really get into the nitty-gritty in January.
So this is from, sorry, I'm fighting a virus, so my voice is going to go in and out. This is from Steve DeShazer and Insu Kimberg. Problem talk creates problem, solution talk creates solutions. And this is really how I got started in solution focus. Was I noticed a lot of the conversations within the educational realm was all talking about the problem. How do we fix the problem? And you really get kind of buried down into the grit of all that. And instead, start talking about, well, what is it that the child's already doing well, and what are some solutions we could have? And I found it made a huge impact, not just for myself as a counselor, but for the staff and also for the student, when we really focused on what we can do to help the student versus talking all the time about the problem. So in today's presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the why. So why solution-focused brief therapy, why it's a good tool to use. What are the basic parts of it and the main building blocks? And then we're also going to talk about the Academy course overview and the things that we're going to offer in that course, which is going to give you a deeper dive into the information that we're sharing today. So why solution-focused counseling? I hear that a lot, and I can say for me, it was a lifesaver. I noticed as a counselor, it's very easy to get burnt out when you're dealing with a lot of the minutia and the problems and the things that come with that in education. And with solution focus, it really kind of revived me, and it helped me to look at things in a different aspect, but also it's something that can be done in a short period of time. And with our international clientele that tends to move around a lot, I found great success with students using this in a short period of time, which then, you know, we see them take into their next school and their next, as they move through life.
And during the midst of COVID, everybody was feeling fried. some of us feeling fried long before that, though. And I experienced a long period of languishing, which is just the blahs, not thriving, not floundering, just kind of blah. And like Felina was just getting to, I love and gravitated to solution focused approach because it's hopeful and it focuses on successes and desires. Okay. It helped me totally rejuvenate because it's a way of thinking and exploring that stomps out the blahs. And it works with all cultures because it works on desires and strengths. It's not us being experts. It's helping the kids create their own path and we help them succeed in it.
How many of you have sat in a meeting in education where you're discussing a student, whether it's a student support meeting or some other meeting, and everybody's talking about the things that the student can't do and all the problems that the student's causing? I guess if you could just put a thumbs up or something in the chat. I know that's something that I experienced a lot in education was just, that constant, well, the kid can't do this. This is the problem, da, 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 da. But then there was no results at the end because nobody could get past the griping to actually come up with solutions and that results. And what I started doing when I started learning solution focus was when I sat in those meetings, I started changing the conversations and asking, well, what can the student do? What are they doing well? Can you give me an example of that? And I saw a shift immediately within those meetings where we actually started coming up with solutions. We start coming up with ways to support the student. I felt there was a better way, and I know Joe has felt that as well. And so we took a look back at ourselves at different ages and what worked for us, and realized that this approach created a new sense of hope for that child, and also created the idea for us to be able to offer solutions that work for that child. And the big part of it is that it puts the student in the driver's seat. It really takes into account who they are, what they know works for them. It validates concerns, but also focuses on that desired outcome. And you're really looking at what the student wants and trying to pull from the student what's actually going to work for them, instead of a bunch of adults saying, hey, we're going to do this and this is going to work. Instead, we're pulling it out from the student and we're getting the student directly involved and giving them some control within the situation and helping them to find the answers. We focus a lot on the future, not necessarily past. And what research has shown that has a greater likelihood of achievement. It avoids defensiveness and blame reallocation, and it opens multiple potential pathways to be able to assist and find solutions and strategies that work for the child. So how does it work? We're going to give you the basic overview, and then we'll go in from there.
There's a West African proverb that I really love, that when the music changes, so does the dance. And it's the point of, if your dance is going well for you, if you're tangoing on, keep tangoing on. You're wonderful just the way you are. This is for the people who really feel that they're languishing and they want something different, okay? And the reason why this is different is because our job is building hope. Our job is not therapist. Our job is not even school counselor. We are hope builders. And that's for everybody we encounter, because we help them get what they want and we help them realize they can do it. So we're the facilitators. We're not the experts. We don't analyze. We don't dissect. We don't even look at the why. It's more, what do you want? Let's get it. And our focus is on what is wanted in the individual strengths, okay? And we always start with the person's best hope. Like we asked you at the beginning of this thing in the chat, what are your best hopes for this presentation? And normally, if we were working with a group at hand, we would then look at, okay, what difference would that make? And then make sure we have the right thing. And then we would go in and say, what's it look like at the end? What's working now and what's next? And we would build it. And And like Felina was saying with the problem talk versus solutions, I'm regularly in student concerns meetings, which I've repackaged into student success meetings and the SST meetings. And and I'm sure as all of you are as well. And when people get stuck in a rut, it's just helping them repackage it to look at what do they want instead. And it's helping them look at, okay, what can they do? The problem's not always there. And, but doing it in a way that they don't feel antagonized, that it just feels like a natural flow. And
so there's a lot of places where we use solution-focused talk. Of course, in individual and group counseling, but I've used it in parent meetings. I've done mediations between parents, students, and coworkers using the solution-focused strategies, student success meetings, conversations with our leaders and administration. And I've seen that it's made a real difference with that connection and that relationship. And also now my administrator is starting to use some of the solution-focused talk when he talks with parents and students as well. Parent and staff presentations, coaching, mentoring. I coach basketball, and I pepper in some of the solution-focused stuff in the conversations with the students. And then also with evaluations, trying to get a 360-degree evaluation strictly from the person just using the solution-focused strategies. Some variations. I personally love scales, and I do a lot based off of scales. And within solution-focused, scales is one of the key strategies. And I've used this with little kids all the way from EC on up through high school. The biggest difference is with young kids, I tend to do shorter mini sessions. It takes a little bit longer, but it works for their brains. And I make it as interactive as possible. So I have a Velcro scale that they actually move people along on the scale to answer the questions. I've also done it where I have a sensory path in my office, and we're walking through the solution focus thing as we're jumping on the sensory path, using art and having them draw out some of the things that we're talking about with solution focus. So making it, especially with the little kids, as interactive as possible. It takes a little bit more time, but it engages them and it still gets the same results. Parental involvement with behavior and mediation between parents, and also just trying to get the parents involved in what's happening. For instance, in Kyiv, I had one situation where a parent was very unsure about getting testing for their child and doing certain things, and very unsure of how the path was. And I conducted a solution-focused meeting with them and the teachers. And from that point forward, the mom came into my office and said, "This is the first time we really heard great things about our kids." And it wasn't just about what our kids not doing. Whatever it is that you want us to do, we will do. And so it was a complete shift from the parent standpoint, and it really got them on board. And I find it's because they're no longer seen as the expert. Instead, they're seen as more as a team member, and we're working together. I focus a lot on instances and exceptions to look at their strengths. So how are they already doing good things, and how we can make more of that happen, and then changing the wording as needed. So I don't like to use the term miracle, because especially with little kids, they're like, miracles don't happen. So it's just, okay, what about tomorrow if something was different tomorrow? And so based on the student and based on the person you're working with, you may have to change some of the wording and terminology, but it does make a difference. This shows you a little bit of the interactive scale. So you can see the Velcro scale, and they have the people that represent mom, dad, teacher, and they move it along. I've also had them create their own scale by putting their favorite foods. So what's the thing that they love the most? That would be 10, and the food that they really hate would be at the 0 mark. Or for my kids that like video games, I'll have them create their own scale ranking their video games. So I try to take something that they're interested in and allow them to make their own scale, which makes it more interactive. So art drawing worksheets, I talked a lot about this sensory path. Even role play, I've used role play with the solution focus, especially with the little ones, and that has helped as well.
So for me, when I'm doing all this, I take notes during session, and I was always behind. I used to be a choice theory guy, and I was trained in a approach that you never took session notes during session. And when I was getting trained at Brief, I brought this up to my mentor, Evan, and he said, well, that doesn't sound like a very good use of my time doing it later. And what I really found out as I started to do this, I have both an iPad that I do it directly in there, or a little whiteboard that I have sitting right here. And you can do bits and pieces of it right with the kid. For one, they usually don't even notice you're doing it. Okay. But two, sometimes they do notice you're doing it, because especially when it's on the whiteboard, and they look at that and it takes pressure off of them. They don't feel like they have to be staring at you. So frequently, a lot of kids, it helps them relax just to help. And then you could also refer back, and it makes it easy. Now you're only really writing down their words. You're not writing down your analysis. You're writing down exactly the key things they say, so you can bring it back to them. And then the best thing is you can export it to them. You can send it to them directly afterward, and if they want it. And I personally often actually build the whole thing within a 1 to 10 scale. And like Felina was saying, for younger kids, if you can't do it interactive in terms of manipulatives, make sure you at least have them show you rather than explain to you. The younger and more emotional the person, like even with an older, like a middle schooler or high schooler who's having an anxiety attack, okay, you can't actually have them explain anything to you. You have to have them walk you through what they do when it works. Have them show you the breathing they do, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're a person who, that you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater for all the cognitive behavioral people out there, okay? A lot of the things that you've become an expert in over the years, you can repackage the same principles just by asking targeted questions, okay? If you know that they need to activate their parasympathetic nervous system by doing belly breathing, you could ask them, well, I noticed you just did something there that helped. Huh? Well, what'd you do? I took a deep breath. Okay, well, did you use your lungs, your belly, or both? I don't know. And say, well, let's try it. And then they can walk you through the exact thing. And that's just using some of the same strategies, but they're telling you rather than you telling them. You're turning them into the expert by just asking targeted questions. And I've spent like the past 6 years, I've done training with 4 different organizations that follow 3 different branches of the solution focused family. They all follow the same principles, but they package it together a little bit differently. And no, it's not a recipe, but you really need to pick what you're going to do, especially your first year. And then after you learn it, live it, love it, you can tailor it. And but don't try tailoring your first couple weeks or months, because you really need to get good at doing it before you can freelance. And I also had a problem with these other organizations that most of them were tailored to therapy sessions that are 45 to 60 minutes. And I had a hard time tailoring it to school counseling needs. So I came up with the solution focused trifecta that is built on the same things, but it's packaged in a way that allows flexibility for counselors to enhance the areas that need enhancing and still hit the other areas. That's what we're going to dig into during the ISCA Academy, where we're going to help you understand how to use this, practice using it, and then get good at using it, as well as when you can tailor it and how.
And so, Catherine, in your case, I mean, we won't go into details, but you could use that what works and what's next with the student. But I've also had cases like this where I've actually, after I've worked with the student, I tried to empower the student to have a conversation with their parents. A lot of times they don't want to do it by themselves. So we actually will invite the parents in and have a conversation together, me, the student, and the parents, where we're able to kind of talk about these things and really, what is the hope? The hope is that, you know, your student is as successful as they are for who they are, and kind of work through the conversations together.
And frequently, like with this last case, with the student feeling that the parents are not present, and it sounds like the kid's also getting sleep deprived. And generally, when you help them look at what's wanted, and then after you design it, what it looks like, when you're thinking about what works, the kid's fresh, the kid's creative. The kid won't be finding success and being creative when he's fried and can't stay awake. He'll also probably notice some, and I'm presuming it was a he, but it's the student would also just be cranky and sleepy, and people will be on his back all the time and he's snapping. And you'd help them realize, well, when isn't that happening? And you would help them create help them identify and envision when it's working, and then help them take the next step to get more of it.
One common challenge is problem talk. With solution focus, you're really trying to focus on the future, focus on what it is that you want and how you're going to get there. But problem talk will come into the scenario. And so the big thing is when somebody brings up the problem talk where they talk about, well, this is, what's really bothering me, and this is the issue. First thing is you want to acknowledge and validate. Okay. So I hear you. That sounds like it's something really, really tough that's going on for you. And then once you acknowledge that and you validate it, then you can start moving them towards that solution focused talk by talking about, well, is that something that you would want to be different? Or what would you want happening instead? Or how would you know that you'd gotten on top of that or sorted that out or made progress in relation? So you're acknowledging the problem that they're bringing up. You're acknowledging the feelings that they're having, but then you're asking them, okay, basically, what are we going to do about it? So how are we going to make that different? What are we going to do instead? And then after that, next slide, you're going to redirect to their strengths. Okay. So, it sounds really tough, but you managed to get through it, or you kept yourself going, or look, you're still here at school, even though you're having such a tough time here at school, you still got up, you still made it to school. What allowed you to do that? And so you're trying to pull the resources that they're already using into the conversation and guide them towards using that with what's happening. And then the follow-up is, what have you been pleased to notice in the last few days, even though the things have been tough? So take it back to something very short term. What have you seen in the past couple of days? Yeah, things are tough, but what have you been able to do, and how have you been able to get through that? And what pleased you about that?
And just like any other therapeutic approach, and whatever your style is, your style works for you, and your style works for you because you're caring, warm, and you validate. Okay, that you're going to keep. You're never going to chuck any of that away. You're still going to be the same wonderful you. You're just going to help them redirect. Okay, mm-hmm. So you'll frequently hear, well, would that be different? Or will that be different? Or what will be different? And to help them think, like, say, for example, if someone's saying they won't walk away, well, what will they do instead? So everything is packaged into positive action rather than negative, abstract things that they don't want to see. So you'll hear things like, what will be different? What are signs of that? What would you rather see? Who would notice? And then if you have nothing else to add, but you feel that it's an incomplete picture, just keep asking what else, what else, what else, what else? Because the whole part is, if they can envision it, they will do it. And we just help them create the picture and follow the path.
Mm-hmm. And the big thing is you're getting the answers and solutions from them, which they tend to buy into, especially when you're dealing with teenagers. If they think it's their idea, they're more likely to internalize that and go with it than if it's just somebody telling them, because they have people telling them all day long what they should do or shouldn't do. And so the idea is, if they think it's their idea, then they're more likely to own it, and you're more likely to see success with it. So on the Academy course that's coming up, what we did today was really just a brief overview, and you will have some resources that will be coming to you, some templates and stuff that have been created. But in the Academy course, we're really going to dig deep into it. We're going to give you lots of practice time. And we actually have a workbook that you're going to receive that has all the information plus practice information on there and lots of resources. And so we're going to kind of use that workbook to kind of work through things. And it's basically going to be a resource that's going to help you for a long time. But also we're going to talk about not just how to use it in your practice as a counselor, but how can you use it around your school, in parent meetings, in staff meetings, just on a daily basis. And we'll give information about schools that have actually been set up. There's a lot of schools that are strictly solution focused schools, and they have everybody using the solution focused talk. And so how can you start slowly implementing that in your class, in your school? I know Joe's done some sessions with parents, teaching them to use the language. He's also done sessions with staff, teaching them to use the language. And then we'll also end it with actually helping you set up a plan for future implementation. So how do you start? You start small, and then you slowly build up to a place where you're comfortable. Joe?
And with all of that, I'm going to give you a homework assignment of sorts. And there are two things that I want you to try to do just in the next week and a half. Most of you have break in about a week and a half. Okay. The two things I want you to try to do over the next week and a half, and maybe even the beginning of January, is try to omit the question word why and replace it with something that would be, how would that look? Or how would that be useful? Just omit the word why. People defensively react to why, not in a different way than if you ask how. Okay. And in addition, always start when someone walks in the room, say, nice to see you. What are your best hopes for this meeting? Or how can this meeting be helpful? Like ask something about, don't say, how are you? Okay, because we're counselors that were regularly used for, anywhere from 2 to 16 different purposes in any given moment. And how are you could start a 5-minute conversation that has nothing to do with what they want. Okay, but if you say, what are your best hopes for talking today? Well, I'm worried about this teacher doing blah, 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 blah. That lets you know that they have some conflict that they're hoping to get resolved. But if they say, well, I needed to find out about the transition process when we moved to Germany. Yes, you'll be asking similar types of questions, but it lets you know which direction you're going in immediately. So you don't actually go off on, and it shortens the meeting in a way that's useful. And when we go into the solution focused trifecta, basically, we'll help you use these in 10 to 30 minute sessions rather than thinking about it as a 20 to 60 minute session. And this is the reason why it's useful for counselors. It maximizes my time and it gets rid of seller's remorse. When I used to have a different approach, I'm no more successful than I am now, but I'm infinitely happier because I was successful before, but kids would avoid me in the hallway because they were embarrassed about what they told me. And then they would go back and come back the next week and tell me the exact same stuff all over again. Okay. But when you're focusing on building what they want, and if you see everybody anyway, you can walk up to people and say, hey, how's it going? And then hand them a note and say, it's your turn. And they'll be like, ugh, and roll their eyes or whatever. But then they know that, hey, it's cool. And they'll say hi to you in the hallway. And they don't have that awkward, oh, what is he thinking? The funny thing is you still know almost all the same information, but they react to you, hopefully, differently, positively, because you're helping them build what they want.
I've taken some of the stuff we'll share in the academy is I've taken some of the questioning and actually helps teachers to develop like a 5-minute conference that they could have with a kid that's misbehaving in their class. So when they pull them out in the hallway, what's a way that they could do a quick 5-10 minute chat with that student in a solution focused format. I've also recently created some behavior plans for students, and in there, one of the strategies is when the teacher has a conference with the student, this is what they're going to say, and these are the questions they're going to ask, and this is how the conversation is going to go. So made the whole behavior plan solution focus, counseling referral plans. So those are all tips that we can share. Catherine had asked if there was a network of solution-focused schools. I don't know that there's a network. I know of a few solution-focused schools, one in South Africa. There's one that was started in Texas, and it was started, they trained custodians, the lunch workers, everybody to use solution-focused talk. And they started it as a school for students that were at risk of dropping out. So the students from their other schools that were at risk of dropping out, possibly not graduating, they can apply to go to this school. And with that, they've seen, I think it's something like 95% success rate with having students graduate, simply by changing the way that they address the students and work with the students by making it that solution-focused format. So there are a lot of schools out there. I believe there's one in Germany as well that does it mostly. There's a lot of schools that do little bits and pieces of it. But I'm happy to connect Catherine and we can talk a little bit more about that, and I can give you some more information on that.
And somebody asked earlier, by the way, I put my email in the chat. If anybody has additional questions that we haven't noticed, please just float me an email. Someone asked earlier about training for certification. If you want training, not only are we going to be having the ISCA thing in January, Felina and I are also going to be unveiling a hybrid model for training purposes that would be part at your leisure, part in person via Zoom. And that will be coming out later in the spring or in the summer. If you want to find out more about this kind of stuff, if you could just throw your email in the chat, and then that way we'll get back to you on any updates from us that if you want to know more. And if you don't worry about it.
Like Joe had said earlier, there's a lot of organizations out there that do training in different aspects. So it's really what kind of focus are you looking for? A lot of the training is geared more towards actual counseling and therapy. We're looking to establish things that are geared more towards the international school realm, geared more towards making it a school-wide approach. But we will send you out lots of information. We have lots of resources that we're willing to share and work with. On the ISCA Academy course, I know that Cheryl had stated that if you're interested in doing that, if you sign up by this Friday, there is a 10% discount on that Academy course, and it's 2 3-hour sessions. And like I said, from there, you'll get a lot of very detailed things where you'll actually be able to walk away and say, okay, I think I can use this, and this is what I'm going to do now, and this is the plan for moving forward in that implementation.
And since Felina is not going to toot her own horn, I will. Which one of these did you help write, Felina?
It's the first one, I believe.
Okay. Felina has a chapter in this that it's done vignettes by people who use the approach in different fields. And Felina is our esteemed auteur. So,
and I'd also look in your country, because what I've noticed is, what I've started finding out is there's actually solution focused groups in a lot of countries. For instance, here in Hungary, there's a whole solution focused group, and they actually ended up seeing one of my and Joe's video and reached out to me. And so I've connected with people here in Hungary and the solution focused organization and been able to have chats and get ideas from them and different things that they use. I'm moving to India next year, and I've already looked. There's a huge organization in India that's all solution focused, and they put on a conference every year. So I'm already working on getting connected with them. So within your country, there's probably an organization. And I know, like in Hungary, it's not just therapists using it here, but it's people in the business realm as well. So you have business coaches and people in different aspects of the business that's using it, and that they're part of that organization.
And I also have a YouTube channel. If you like YouTube and you like videos, this is everything from interviews from different luminaries in the field to just interesting people doing interesting things tied to solution focus approach. And there are also some vignettes on different paths that different people like. One of the guys, Arnold Hybers, he's a therapist in the Netherlands. He liked my breakdown of his approach so well. He asked me if he could use it with his students to before he has meetings with them. And I said, hey, have at it, man. So you might find some of the variations interesting. And again, please don't be shy. Reach out to us.
We can end on a scale from a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being you don't see any benefit at all to solution focus. You don't understand it. You don't want any of it. 10 being is you see it as being very beneficial and something you want to learn more about, and you really are starting to get the ideas behind it. Where would you put yourself on that scale? Okay.
And somebody asked,
8s.
as people are putting those in, somebody asked above, what if a student is getting stuck? Everything you can ask them, what is helping them stay where they are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And what is helping them from being, what's preventing them from being one step lower? And it's helping them. And then also another key thing that is frequently helpful is asking them who's the first person who would notice where they are, and ask them what would they see, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about themselves, but they have no problem actually talking about themselves if they do it from the perspective of another person. And because like especially if they get sent by the principal, okay, and they're pissed that they're even there, say, well, how can we make the most of our time? And how will Mr. OC know that things are going well? And have them paint the picture from that person's perspective, because stakeholders are stakeholders. It's even better though if they're loved stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of times when I'm asking kids, to talk about good things about themselves and list things out, they won't say it directly. But if I say, okay, if I had your mom in here right now, I want you to be your mom. What would your mom say about you? And then they'll chat on, okay, well, what would your dad say about you? Or what would this person say about you? What would your best friend say about you? And all of a sudden you get a list of things that then you can use in further solution-focused conversations with them, that are positive traits, things that they really value about themselves, but they're not comfortable saying that they value it about themselves, but they're comfortable to say that other people value about that. Well, thank you so much for coming. It was nice to see so many people here.